It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me is Jon Meacham, the author of the new book, Destiny and Power, The American Odyssey of George Herbert Walker Bush. Jon is here today to discuss this intensely private man and the lessons we can learn from his life story. Jon is a Pulitzer Prize winning author and an executive editor at Random House. Welcome, Jon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Jon, I thought it was important to do today's show because with everything that is going on in our country today, people living in fear, the questioning of leadership, mistrust of politicians, and the changing values of our society, I wanted to share a story about a man who, while ambitious, lived his life following a code of honor. From what you learned about President George Herbert Walker Bush, our 41st president, how would you describe this man?
He's the last president of the greatest generation, the last president of the World War II era. He was raised in a privileged but conscientious household, believing that to whom much is given, much was expected. He was, as you say, very ambitious, but he was also totally devoted to the idea of public service, of service to others. He often said that no definition of a successful life is without service to others, and was someone who, from a very early age, had an innate sense of empathy. That's his brother's phrase about him. George Bush was known as half-half as a child because he would take treats and desserts and cut them in half to give half to the other kid. This was someone who always thought about the other guy, who was always able to put himself in other people's shoes. And that's an incredibly important human trait, and it's also an incredibly important political trait, because as a diplomat, as a politician, as a president, he was able to imagine what it was like to be on the other side of a question, and therefore was able to find common ground, compromise, consensus more often than many other presidents.
So he had this tremendous sense of duty and a call for public service. And was being elected president of the United States in his plan from the beginning? And if not, when did that goal become a reality for him?
Well, he was really thinking about it as early as the mid-1960s. When he had run for the Senate, he was running for the Congress from Texas. Is the first direct mention he makes of possibly being able to go all the way. And that was 23 years before he actually made it. His family had long seen him as someone for whom that kind of destiny was at least possible long before it became probable. So this was a man who had impressed others all through his life at every point as he grew up, and was someone for whom the tension in his life was between what it took to win and then what one did once one won the power. So there was what you did to win power and then what you did with power. And I think that great political lives have to be judged more on what people do with power when they have it than how they got it on the campaign trail.
President Bush was a very private man, and you had tremendous access to him and Barbara, his wife, and other family members. What do you think are some of the most important things that we don't know about him?
How emotional he is. I think how conscious he is of how other people feel. I think people don't know about his combat record, being shot down in the Pacific, losing two crewmates at the age of 20. His incredibly emotional and understandably complex reaction to the loss of his daughter to leukemia in 1953. This is a man much more complicated, much more interesting than you would think. He seems like kind of a figure out of the Brooks Brothers catalog, but he's far more than that. And I think if you engage with his life, if you engage with his life story, you really see the evolution of American power in the 20th century, and you get to walk along with someone who was always struggling to reconcile his political ambition, with his duty to serve others.
Looking back at his presidency, what were some of his greatest challenges?
Well, it was a big 4 years. It was 8 years of action crammed into 4. There was Tiananmen Square. There was the fall of the Berlin Wall. There was the first Gulf War. There was the end of the Soviet Union. There was the negotiation of NAFTA. There was the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the passage of the Clean Air Act. I mean, this was a big, consequential presidency. And it was marked by his attempt to manage immense change carefully and in the national interest. And he was willing to take stands and do things that he knew would be bad for him politically, but he thought they were good for the country on substantive grounds.
Do you think he's happy with the way he'll be remembered?
You know, he's very much at peace with that. He believes that history will get it right. He believes that if people look at his life and career in a fair-minded way, they'll come out on the other side thinking that this was a man who tried to put the country first. And I think he's right. I think he did. I interviewed President Obama for this. That was a phrase President Obama used. He said that to his mind, George H.W. Bush had always tried to put the country first. And that's the best thing one can say of a president, it seems to me.
Now, President Bush married young, and he's remained married to Barbara all these years. How have they managed to survive the pressures of public life and keep their family intact? Did he or Barbara share any insight about their relationship?
They are totally devoted to each other, still are. They've been married for 70 years. They were brought together at an incredibly exciting and dangerous time in the life of the country. They met a couple of weeks after Pearl Harbor. They survived World War II together. They survived moving to Texas. They survived the loss of their child. They built this family. They kept, Mrs. Bush kept the family together, really body and soul, while President Bush was building a business, then building a political career. They have a great sense of humor with one another, which I think is critical to any relationship. And just managed to realize that they were always going to be stronger together, and that their lives were going to be fuller and richer with the other one in it.
It's definitely a takeaway that we can all pay attention to. Jon, as parents, we derive tremendous joy from the achievements of our children. What was it like for him to see his son be elected president as a father and also as a former leader of our country who knew what his son was about to experience?
He was immensely proud and immensely apprehensive for it because he knew how hard it was. The pride is evident. The pride is very clear from the beginning of the son's political careers, but he knew how hard it was going to be. It was one of the reasons that he made a point of not offering unsolicited advice. President Bush's view was that he was there to be consulted by his son if his son wanted to consult him, but that he was not going to just pop off or pick up the phone and try to tell him what to do, because as only a former president could know, Bush knew how hard and complicated the job was without having people weighing in from the sidelines.
So having gone through it himself and then having lived through it with his son, what does he say now about his other son, Jeb, who's currently running for president?
He's just very concerned, watches it with great care, trying to figure out, like the rest of us, this crazy political year. Wants Jeb to do well, believes that he'd be a great president, and he's watching it as a dad, not as a former president. And I think is, as I say, just as flummoxed as a lot of us are about how the Republican race is shaking out.
The book is Destiny and Power, The American Odyssey of George Herbert Walker Bush by Jon Meacham. If you would like to learn more about the book or about Jon and his work, you can visit jonmeacham.com. Jon, if you could sum it all up, what lessons can we learn from the life of this man?
That service is essential, that putting the country ahead of political self-interest is possible, and that a life devoted to the ideals of duty, honor, country can happen, can unfold in our time, and we just have to be patient, be forbearing, grant a certain generosity of spirit to our politicians, because they're human beings too, just trying to get it right.
Jon, thank you for joining us today and for providing a look into the life of this leader who has been called by some one of the last gentlemen of American public life. There's so much we can learn from this man who was a product of a truly great generation. So thank you for being here and for sharing what you learned.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Hi, this is Joan Herman, host of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Did you know that Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox? Every month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide information to educate, inspire, and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. Check out a copy of Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life 24/7. Visit cyacyl.com and be sure to tell your friends. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read the digital magazine, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.